Hi guys, welcome to Warmer DevOps. This is a continuation of a series of videos that we're doing. So this is the second video on how to use provider meta-arguments. So the last video we had looked at how we can use a provider meta-argument to create EC2 instances in different regions. But as we did mention that it wasn't a very cleanly way. We were not following best practices when using Terraform. So in this video, I'm going to show you how we can modularize our code, how we can make our code more flexible by using variables, by creating modules. But not just that, we want to make sure that we have minimum amount of code. In Terraform, there is a concept called dry, whereby you don't repeat yourself. We always say run your code dry, do not repeat yourself. Okay? So it means that you can write your code once and reuse it. So if we want to create an EC2 instance, there is a best practice dictates that we shouldn't write multiple codes of the same thing. So I can write one resource block and reuse it, again, depending on the context. So I will show you how we can now use Terraform best practices to modularize our code and use variables in that. So let me just share my screen. So this is what we had worked at. So one of the things that we're going to do is I can use some variables. I can pass some variables here to specify the different regions. Okay? So one of the variables that I can use right there, I can create a variable, and instead of passing instant type hard-coded, I can use a variable. So I can say instant type. I can say the name is instance. I can just say instant type, right? Instant type, and I can make this variable required. So I can say the type is string. Okay. Now, how do we make variables required? We make variables as input variables are required if we do not supply a default, right? If we don't supply a default value. So if I leave this variable like this, so I'm making it required, meaning that the user will have to supply the variable. So I can pass the variable for that. I can also pass a variable for let's say my region. So I can pass a second variable. I can say variable, and this variable I can just say region, and I can also make it required. Okay, so I can make it required. I can say type is string, right, and make it required. So now with this, I can remove this provider. I can remove that code right there because we want to reuse our code. Now I only have this. So with this, I can specify this now as a variable. I can say var.instant type. Okay, var.instant type. Okay, var.instant type. Then now for this particular region, I can say var.region. Okay, var.region. Now I could create another alias, like variable for my alias region, and I can say alias region. I can also make it required, and I can say type equals to string. Okay, type is string, and right here for region, I can say this is var dot alias region. Var.alias region. Okay, so once I have this, now I can create a directory within that particular provider. I can create a directory, and this directory I can just call it EC2. That is my EC2 module. Okay? EC2. So within this EC2, I want to have this file, this main dot. I can put that main.tf within that particular directory. I can put my data source inside of that directory. Okay? Now, when I look inside of this directory, I have my main, which has my resource. It has my provider alias. But first, let me copy this file. Let me copy that file, and we want to create a module. So let me just paste it there, and I'll work on it. So within this file, let me remove my provider from the module. Okay, let me remove that provider alias from the module, and I just have my variables. Okay, I have my variables there. So because of that, I only need instant type as my variable. So within the module, let me remove these variables for now. Okay, let me remove those variables for now. So this EC2, it only requires one variable. It's only calling for one variable, which is that instant type. So it means I need to declare it. Okay, within that EC2 module, I need to declare that variable. So variable, I'll say instance type. Okay, variable instance type. Okay, did I declare it somewhere else? So let me also remove this. that. So here, instant type is var instant type. I haven't declared it anywhere else. Okay. So within the module, let's work within this module first. This module requires one variable, which we've declared it within the module. Now, right here on this main, so now we can create our module. So within our module, we don't need this resource block. Okay. Within our module, we are going to require, we can leave our providers, but within the module, we can use a module block to create our module. And this module, we can call it EC2 East. Okay. We can call it EC2. Actually, let me call it EC2 West. EC2 West. And the source of our module is this EC2 directory. So the source will be .ec2. Okay. That is the source where the module is. Now, this module, within that particular module, it has one variable that is required, which is instant type. So I can go right here and I can supply that value. It requires a variable called instant type. Okay. Now I can supply that value as a T2 micro. Okay. T2 micro. That is the value of the instant type that I'm supplying here. Okay. It requires that. Now I have the region here. I have the region here also specified as a variable, but this region here, it is on my root module. It is within the root module. So I can supply these values or not supply the values. So within this particular root module, so before I use these variables, let me show you what we're going to do. So before I use those variables, let me hard code this region. So this provider here, it is US West 1. And obviously I can say this is US East 1. Okay, US East 1. So right now I'm not using this provider alias. I just have my module, one module here. I've only supplied one instance. So where is it going to create this instance? So let's initialize this module and let's see where this instance is going to be created. Okay, because the goal is we want to create 2 instances. So once I do that, I'll run Terraform. If I ls within my provider, I'll see that I have a directory EC2 and my main.tf. This is where I'm calling my module. I have declared my module here. This is where my EC2 module is, but this is where I'm calling it. So if I run Terraform init, it will initialize and download that module EC2. Now, if I do Terraform plan, if I plan it, right now it is just going to create for me one instance. That instance is being created in US West, right? US West. Now, if I wanted to use this same module, but to do what? To provision resources in East. Now, I can create another module block, right? I can create another module block, and this module I can say EC2 East, okay? EC2 East. Now, with that, I'll use the same source, right? With that same source, this module requires one variable, instant type, and I can say for this instant type, let me say I can give it T2 medium. Okay? That's our instant type. Now, because I want to create this resource in a different region, then I will need to pass the provider alias. Okay, the provider alias. Now, on modules, once I've declared that that's my input, so I can pass my providers. So within modules, it will be providers. You'll have to specify providers, which is a map. So these providers, I'm going to specify it as AWS equals to AWS.east. Okay, AWS.east. Now, if I run this, let's try to initialize this. It is going to give us an error or a warning, an error, right? And we will see how to fix it. So if I run Terraform plan, now it is going to tell me the module is not yet installed, this second module. So I have to initialize it first so that the module is downloaded. So I'll run Terraform init. Once I initialize it, it is going to give me a warning. It says there is no explicit declaration for the local provider name that in the module. Okay? Because I'm using a child module. So there is no explicit. I'm using an alias, but there is no, it hasn't been explicitly declared in the module. But this is just a warning, but we will see how we're going to fix that. Okay. So can I plan? If I do Terraform plan, if I run Terraform plan, now we see right here what it shows me is there's that warning, but there is also an invalid reference. But I think that's my mistake. This needs to be a string like that for region. So if I plan again, it is going to run that. But this is just a warning. But let's see, is it is it using our alias? Will this be created in US East? So let's look at the AMI that it has pulled. So this AMI ends with B8, BE, but the other one ends with E99F, okay, E99F. So now here we see that we have this module because we passed our provider, this provider here, right? But we've also specified this provider alias in our region, okay? We specify the provider alias here. Then that, because of this, so it is going to alter where this is going to be created. But let's look at our module. Our module itself, we have our EC2 instance. You have our EC2 instance. It only requires that data source and the instant type, which we've passed as a variable, we made it required. That is our data source, okay? Now, when we look at where we are calling the module, all we have specified is this is our provider, right? We specify the region, US West, and we've also passed another provider alias for East. The first module here is using this default provider, default in the sense that it is not an alias. It will use this as default. So any resource that you create that you don't specify a provider, then it is going to use that. Resources will be created in US West. But any resource that you specify a provider as an alias, as a meta-argument, because now these providers here within modules, they are set as a map. But if it was a resource, you'll just use provider as an alias. So because we have set this provider alias here, then what is going to happen is that this resource is going to be provisioned in US East. And that's why these AMIs, this is for West, and this is the AMI for East, okay, for East. But it is using the same resource block instance. That's why the name here is basically the same. So, but it's reading it from different modules. So here, we've lessened our code. We just have this amount of code and our data source. But then we are reusing it here by providing 2 module blocks to call the same source, right? So we are reducing our lines of code. We haven't duplicated our data source. But still, we see that when we are running it, we still have a warning. So for this warning to go away, we have to explicitly declare our provider alias within the module. Now, how do we configure it? If I look at the Terraform documentation, so we have to provide, if we are using an alias, so within our child module, then we have to pass our required providers with a configuration aliases. What aliases? So that it is propagated when we call the module. So it just means that we will have to go to our module and add this configuration, okay? Add that configuration. So I'll go to my module. Let me see, go back to my module. So within that particular module here, this is where my module is. So I can go in there and let me start by adding this Terraform configuration. So let me just copy it. I can copy that and let me just add it here. Then we will refactor. Okay, so I can add it there. So once I've done that, I've added that with configuration, right? A configuration alias, and that alias is AWS East. Now let me plan it and see if it's going to give me the same error or another error. So once I do that, it's telling me that now I have a missing required provider configuration. So now I'm missing a provider configuration. So what that means is that now I need to pass my provider configuration. Okay, I need to go to my module and specify this provider alias. Okay, I need to specify that provider within the module. So this has now been passed within the module. So if I initialize it, if I do Terraform init, it is going to initialize. Now, can I plan it without an error? I can run Terraform plan. Once I run plan, now do I have any error? Now it doesn't give me any error. And with that, I look at my AMIs. It has now returned that AMI ends with B8, BE, and that one is E99F. So now this is being created in West, this is being created in East. Now, how do I do that? How did I silence that warning? I needed to pass an explicit configuration alias within my module so that when I call it, already it is being propagated within the module. It knows that the aliases that the module expects to use are this US East. So I'm going to use this within my module. Then when I come to my main, the only thing I'll need to pass is now my providers here, my provider, that provider, and I can now specify it explicitly as providers with an alias, okay, with an alias. So now with this, what I can do is now I've tested my code. I know that everything works as expected because for this, it is returning T2 medium, and that is T2 micro, different AMI. So it just means that it's creating them in different regions. So I can go ahead now and refactor my code. Refactoring just means I can create different files. I can say provider.tf, can create a provider.tf file. And what I can do is I can remove all this my providers. I can cut them out of there. I can put it here. I can put it here. I can have my region as an alias. So I can have this region here as var. I go back var dot alias region. Then it means that I'll have to define a variable here. Variable. And then it should be alias region. Alias region. Then I can create a new file. And this file, I can say it's inputs.tf, and I can remove my variables. My variables from here. I can remove them, cut them out. I can put them in my inputs. Right? Inputs right there. Okay, so those are my variables. That's my main. That's my EC2 instance. I can change this name and just have it as my instance. My instance. I have my provider, which has that one. And that's my data source. So when I go to my module, now my module expects two variables, instant type, but also it expects region. Okay. So I can specify that region, and that region here I can supply it as alias region. Right? I can separate it as alias region, and because I'm passing my regions here, again I can utilize these variables. I can specify them as var dot alias region, right? var dot alias region. So I can have this var dot alias region. Then instant type, I can have it as var dot my module expects instant type and alias region. So my module expects instant type. So instant type, I can also declare it here, variable. I can have it as instance type, instant type. I can have the type is string. Okay, so instant type is var.instance type. Okay, var.instant type and alias region. And then right here I can pass that I can specify alias region. I can say var.alias region. So I've specified my variables here, but this region will be this. So I'll specify the region here, var.region. Then this will be var.alias region. Okay. So I can specify that. And then this will be instant type. I can say var dot instance. Let me say instance ist. var dot instance ist. Now instant type is var dot instant type. So I can have this var dot instance type. That was instant type. Okay, instant type. So now with that, if I want to create these two instances together, then I can supply those values. I can either set defaults. I can say defaults. Default is, let me say t2 dot micro region. I can have it default as t2, or region is US West 1, and then this I could put it at default as US East 1. So I can supply them like that. And then now with this, I can copy this, I can cut it out, and then I can go to my provider, I can create a new file, I can have my inputs.tf. Within that input, I can pass my variables right there with defaults that I've set. And this is now where I'm calling my modules. Okay. So now with that, I can try it. I can do Terraform init. As I initialize, I'm going to initialize the backend. I can do Terraform plan. So it is able to generate a plan, creating that in East, creating that in West E9, and that's EB. I can go a step further and try to identify these instances. So I can use a tag. I can say tags, and I can say that is the name, and I can say this is var dot name, or var dot instance name, or var dot instance tag. Yeah, instance tag. That means I have to declare it here. Variable. I'll say instance tag that I've declared. So I'll go to the module, and now the module I have to, again, to provide it. I'll just say this one is instance tag, and then I could even supply the value here. That tag, I'll say this is dev west, and I can supply my instant tag on this instant tag. I can supply it as dev east. Yeah, dev east. So I'm supplying those tags right there. So let me go back here. Let me initialize. Always get to initialize once you make changes to the module. And then let me plan it. So once I plan it, it's downloading my module. I see now this, it is dev west. It's creating it in the west. And this is dev east, being created in the east. Okay. So now when you look at my code is a little bit more cleaned up, but I can go a step further. Now this is my module, it's tucked away. I can go a step further and create another file here. And this file, I can call it provider.tf. That provider.tf, I can go to my main, and I can remove this provider here. I can remove this provider, remove that provider, and I can put it on my provider. So that goes to a provider, and that is your main, where you have your modules. Okay, where you have your modules. So now with this, it is a more cleaner way. I'm reusing the same code, and all that I'm doing is I'm just applying the inputs to this. So there is more that you can do with this. So for example, right now, what we are passing the instant type as one variable, right? As one variable. But as a matter of fact, because when we look at our inputs, the only variable we are passing is T2 micro. So this is not very useful, because what if in this module I needed to use a T2 medium or T2 large, but on this instance I need a T2 medium. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how now we can make that flexible, whereby we can use, instead of using our variables like this, we can create a list or a map, right? We can create a list or a map of instance types. Then we can say, for this module, we want to use, from the map, we want to use T2 medium. And on this instance, we can supply a value and say we will use a T2 micro. So in the next video, we will see how we can use a map to get values from a map and map it to different resources. So stay tuned for the next video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.